People, Real Stories with Brittany Lee, and really excited to welcome Lisa Pardee today because Lisa and I met almost a year ago at the Cherry Valley Psychic Fair, and I was doing a live broadcast, and I had you read my dog Jack, Captain Jack. Everybody knows Captain Jack, and he, you brought tears to my eyes, but in a good way, in a very good way. You are an animal communicator.
Yes.
So you also are. I read that you're also a Reiki master.
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
And you are a psychic medium.
Yes.
Now, before we even get into all of those, I have to ask you about growing up. When did you first realize that there was something that just wasn't? I hate to use the word normal, but something that just wasn't normal.
When I was a little girl, we watched Dr. Dolittle with Rex Harrison back in the 60s, and I turned around and I told my mother, I said, I want to talk to animals. And she said, you can do anything you want to. And that's one thing, thank God for my parents, because they had always told me no matter what, the sky's the limit. You know, you can do whatever you choose to put your mind to. And I had told her that I wanted to do that, and she always noticed that there was a direct connection. Any animal that was around the area on the property, I just got extremely attached to.
Sure.
Always wanted to be with it. We've always had animals. And after a while, it kind of shifted. You get older, and as you grow, and I think a couple instances happened that made me a little nervous as a child.
How cool is that, though, that your parents your mom actually encouraged you to do it, which I'm assuming kind of opened you up to it even more.
It did. And I'm finding out now, she passed away 21 years ago, actually. Right. And as I go through her things, I was all of a sudden finding things, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's such a connection that I'm finding since she's passed. We were always very connected when she was here,
right.
But now that she's passed, there's little things that happen that all of a sudden I was looking at a series of books from a specific author, and I thought, I really want to get these books, and I had bought all of them, and I went through a box of her books, and there was one of the books from the series, and it's like I had moved out of the house when I was about 20 years old, and as I was growing and doing my own thing, she was home doing her own thing, and then come to find out we were a lot more on the same path than I knew.
Isn't that funny how as you get older, you sort of kind of, I guess, relate more to your parents, and you sort of understand. You can get mad at them for things as a kid. As an adult, you look back and say, well, no wonder they did it that way, or they said this to me, or I had to be treated that way.
Well, and she told me when she passed, she had leukemia, and it was 6 months from the time she was diagnosed to the time she passed. And one of the things that she said to me is, she said, you never listened to me. And I said, Mom, I always listen to you. I may not have done it the way you suggested first time around, but I always listened.
Do you hear, not to get off the topic, but do you ever hear from your mother?
Oh, all the time. All the time. If I'm doing something, I feel tingles. I feel her on my left side. I can feel tingles, and she does. There's just little things. It'll be little reminders, and I hear her. I hear her. She'll if I'm doing something really not intelligent. All of a sudden,
so to speak.
Yeah, I'll all of a sudden get that. I know. And I'll take. I was scared to death one day. I had to have a tooth pulled, and I've never had any dental work done. My teeth. That's one of my blessings, is that I've had a good set of teeth.
Right.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, Mom, I need you, because I just, I'm nervous. No matter how old you are. You always, when something's off, you always want your mom.
You are
no
correct.
matter what. You don't grow out of that. You always want your mom. So I'm sitting there in the dental chair with me half tipped up with a shot of Novocaine in my mouth, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I felt her. I felt the rub, and I felt, okay, I'm good. She's here. We got this.
So you can physically, as a medium, can you physically feel touches?
Yes.
Do you hear audible sounds and voices, or is it more internal?
It depends. I get a lot of different things. I can hear voices. I can smell. I can not see, but I have images.
Okay,
They'll pop in my head. It's a little bit of, and I love looking through antique stores. If I pick up something, and I head right for horseshoes. If there's horseshoes someplace, I grab it. And generally, I can tell you what horse had that shoe on.
Is that psychometry?
Yes.
That to me is probably one of the most fascinating things in the realm of the paranormal world and mediumship and psychic and to be able to touch something and feel emotions or history or
and it has to be something real. I mean, it has to be like a horseshoe. A friend of mine handed me something one day and said, "Can you get something off of this?" And I touched it. It was plastic, and it's like, no, it's that I can't get anything off of plastics. It needs to be metal or glass or wood. If I walk into a building, and sometimes I'll touch a wall, and I can funeral homes are awesome.
I can imagine what that can bring to you. Does it overload you sometimes?
It can. It depends on what it is. And what it depends. There's nothing's black and white. Nothing is ever black and white. Depending on where I am, what I'm touching, and what the history is. Sometimes I get little bits and pieces.
Sure.
Or sometimes I'll get a full blown, like all of a sudden I'll get an image of history or something that happened there. And then it all just depends on what it is.
I was watching Dr. Oz, about a month and a half ago, and he had on, I think she was 9 or 11, for some reason those two numbers come back, a young girl who was a psychic medium. And they gave her a wallet, and she held the wallet, and she was very thoughtful for a moment, and she said, "I feel like this gentleman had some pain in his kidneys and his back area, and his mother was actually in the audience, and he had died from kidney problems." And she picked up on that from a wallet. Now, there's so many, a lot of naysayers, a lot of skeptics will say, well, that was an easy one to pick. But there are so many different ways that someone could die, or someone could, there's so many issues or diseases that someone can have. For me, the fact that this little girl who knew nothing about the situation just held a wallet that she couldn't look into, just held it and could pinpoint that, I think that's just amazing.
A lot of it depends on what it is and the moment and what comes from it.
Sure.
Someone that has the same capability, and everybody has the same capabilities, it just depends on how you're going to channel it. I can hold on to something and get this story, and I can hand it to somebody else, and they'll get another piece to the puzzle or another story. And a lot of it is depending on, I have a lot of guides, I have a lot of spirit, and I have a lot of, they'll only tell me what I'm on a need-to-know basis. If somebody comes to me and asks me something, I might not get anything for it, but it's because I'm not on a need-to-know, but I don't need to know.
Right.
It's not something, or it might be something that it's not going to come through me. A good example of that is, and you're in love with animals.
Yes.
Have you watched a dog that normally thinks that everybody is absolutely wonderful, and they'll stay away from one person?
I have truly seen that.
Or you've had one that won't go to anybody except for one person. Spirit's the same way. When you walk in the psychic fairs that I do, and some of the ones that I go to, I'll walk around a whole room and get a feeling off of each one of them before I'll actually sit with somebody, because I want somebody that I feel comfortable with. And sometimes if someone comes to me and asks me something, their guides, their spirit, you might be sitting with me and I'm not the one you're supposed to get the information from. And people will say, I didn't get anything from that person. No, you didn't, because you weren't supposed to.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
Which is amazing to me. I never even knew that. That's something new that I never knew.
There was Beardsley that I do. There's another animal communicator there who's a very, very good friend of mine. We will bounce ideas off of each other, and if she's too close to something, she'll ask my opinion, and vice versa. If I'm having problems with something, I will contact her. And somebody would come up and they'll say, I there's another one here. I said, that's okay. You go to who you feel you're most comfortable with. Because a lot of times, this isn't something that you're just going to grab off the top of your hat. If you need help with this or you want to know something, you need to go to someone that you feel comfortable with and who you believe in. And if you believe in that person, your pet is going to believe in them too.
I'm sitting here with a smile on my face because I never thought about it, Lisa, that, how do I say this, that sometimes if you go to a psychic or somebody who reads tea leaves, or even if you have specific questions in mind, you may not come back with all of the answers that you seek. And that's why. And a lot of people are quick to say, oh, they're a scam artist. Oh, but to be honest with you, I don't believe that everybody who says that they are a medium or they are an animal, I don't believe that they are.
And it's something where each person has a different gift. I had a person one day that got very upset with me because I would not go to their house and work with their animal or to actually read their animal. When you're on the animal's territory, that's you're invading their space. It's not really an invasion, but you're coming into their space, into their territory. Yes, they're more comfortable. However, to do a reading, I'm better off sitting in my office doing an email. I can get a lot more. I'm in my space. Your pet is in your space, and there's a lot more communication that can happen between the two. When I come there, they're all excited, or they're the other way, and they're almost to the point where, who are you in my house?
Yeah, and why are you here? And
exactly.
They're away from you, and you can't concentrate, I guess you could say. How is animal communication different, maybe, from reading people?
A lot of times, with animal communication, I'm actually communicating right with the animal. They are actually, I'm asking questions, they're giving me answers. They're telling me stories, whereas when you're working with people, if like yourself, I would be getting information from your guides, from your past family. If you've got grandmother, grandfather, great grandmother, great grandfather, if they're there, they will be giving me information about you.
Sure.
Whereas with the animal, it's not necessarily it's a one-on-one. It's hard to explain.
No, I get it. And when I've had you read Jack twice now. And both times were very helpful for me. You said a lot of things. The first time at the Cherry Valley Psychic Fair when you read Jack, I said you literally brought tears to my eyes because the things that you said and the things that you told me were things that weren't readily available information for anyone. And so what I loved about it was the fact that not only were you telling me things he was saying, but you're telling me things that I might want to watch for, or I might want to, maybe he's not feeling well, or the back end is a little painful or sore, things that we can actually fix and take care of, which is so good for your heart to know that you can do something, because we all say animals can't talk. Oh, I wish my dog could talk, or my cat could talk and tell me when he doesn't feel well. And it's so difficult. You feel hopeless because you have no control over it. But when I talked to you, you gave me ideas of things that I should look into that really did help. And do you talk to the animal himself, or maybe how does that work? Do you talk to his soul?
I do. When you send me the information and you have questions.
Oh, let's talk about that. How do if people want to do a reading? How does this work? How does a reading work? And then we'll talk about the other.
All they have to do, you send a picture of your photo or of your animal, preferably with the eyes showing. The eyes are a window to their soul.
They are.
And with their eyes showing. And I've had people send a couple, 2 or 3 different photos. Sometimes they'll only send one. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be something where I can actually get a good image. And this is for me to be able to see what animal I'm looking at. and I'm trying to talk with. And then if they have questions, it's good. I've had a few people say, well, I just want a temperature check or something. And that's okay, but sometimes it's good to have a little bit more of a guidance if you're having a little bit of an issue. I like to be able to ask them straight questions, because that kind of opens them up. And my first thing to do is, when I have the photo and the questions, is I ask their permission. I always ask their permission. I ask everybody's permission. Can I talk with you? Do you mind if I talk with you? Cats are funny. Cats are really funny.
Well, you tried to read my Lily, and we all know how that went.
And it's just cats are, and sometimes it'll take time. Sometimes they don't want to talk with me, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, because they wouldn't talk with me doesn't mean they won't talk with somebody else. It's that feeling thing again. I actually had one cat cleared my dogs out of my bedroom.
Wow.
And it's amazing, because both of my dogs will usually, when I'm sitting in there working with all this stuff, they're right here. I've got one on my feet, one's at my side, and I'll do a reading, and they're very calm, and all of a sudden both of them got up and totally haul ass out of the bedroom.
Oh my gosh.
And where are you going? I'm doing a reading. Where are you going? Well, I had my older one, Max, my male, he's poking his head around the corner, looking to see what, and I'm sitting there thinking, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, it's the cat. And I'm like, wait a minute. We're not going to start off on this foot.
Right.
So I called them both back in. I closed the bedroom door because I wanted them to stay there. I wanted them to stay with me, but I also wanted the cat to know that you don't rule the roost everywhere you go.
Like they think they do.
Whether you are in physical body or you are in spirit, you do not rule the roost.
Right.
So they were both on edge for a couple minutes, and after I started working with the cat a little bit more, they both relaxed and calmed down. It's the first time that had ever happened.
That is wild. Oh my gosh.
But
crazy.
I start to ask questions, and I do. I'm a dowser, so I will work with a pendulum also. If I'm not getting an exact answer from the animal, I'll dowse it. And then it gives me kind of a little bit more of a direction to where I can go around things to get better answers from them. And then I'll go down through and I make sure all the questions are answered. And then all of a sudden, and that gives them, if I have something specific to ask them, that kind of loosens things up a little bit, and then things start flowing. They'll all of a sudden start talking.
We have to talk about my mother really fast,
Your mother's a
because
sweetheart.
my mother had a Chihuahua named Little Man, and we really don't know how old he was. All we know is that he looked like death walking the earth by the time his time came, and he was kind of like crotchety old man like, and she ended up having to put him down humanely. His time had come, and she felt very guilty about it. So I said, why don't you let me have Lisa read him, and we'll see what happens. And I purposely gave you very little information, because I believed in you, and I wanted my mother to believe in you too. So I gave you no information. So you came back to me about a day later, and you said, was he, how did you say it? Was he, I think, dizzy or disoriented?
Yeah.
Something like that. Wobbly?
Yeah.
Wobbly, I think was the word. And all I said was yes. And you came back and gave the exact diagnosis of Little Man and everything that was around it. My mother, from time to time, would feel like he was there with her, and she would catch him out of the corner of her eye. You didn't know this, and you said that. And my mother is truly a Lisa Pardee believer right now, because all of that information, none of that is stuff that you would have any way of knowing at all. And it just gave her such peace. Animal communication, to me, is just such a way, because, of course, you can communicate with your pets when you love them very much through your heart, but it's such a open-ended sort of communication. There's no way of getting direct answers all the time. So to be able to have this kind of closure for somebody is just so wonderful.
And the confirmation.
Oh my gosh,
you're
without a
looking,
doubt.
and everybody wants confirmation. Even me,
Yes.
when I do a reading for you, just to know, and it's not, oh, good, I was right. It's just one of those things where if I misunderstood something that they were giving me, because again, it's very hard. One of the things that I had to do when I first started really doing this, you have to communicate with spirit yourself. So one of the things that I put out there was that if somebody's coming to me, one of your relatives, if somebody's coming to me, I need to know who it is.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I do that is that, and unfortunately most of my family's passed, if I need to tell you it's your grandmother on your father's side, I need to see my gram. So I will get an image of one of my family members so that I can tell you who it is that I'm talking to.
So you can relate who you see in your family with who it is in mine. Oh my gosh, that's fascinating.
And they've most of the time they've been spot on. The only time that I had a problem with one was that she was born to a sister, and her aunt and uncle brought her up. But she called them mom and dad.
Oh, okay.
And that threw, because I kept saying your aunt, and she's like, no, it's not. It has to be my mom. But it was the shift, so I'm getting it. I'm getting the right person. Just it wasn't a traditional family.
That's enough to confuse anybody.
And it does, and it gets kind of. I don't want to say frustrating, but I take a step back and it's like, okay, we have to fix this somehow, because I know who's here,
right?
And I kind of see them. I'll get bits and pieces of images or what they're like, but sometimes I don't know how to convey it if something like that changes.
Again, it's all, I guess, open to interpretation and what you particularly see. Maybe a different psychic or a different animal communicator might see the same thing and interpret it in a different way. And they would be. I find the whole thing fascinating, especially myself being an empath. And just realizing it not long ago, and still now working through everything that's involved with that. You know, I've said it before, a lot of people, it's easy to say you're an empath. It's easy to say, oh, I'm very emotional and I love animals, but until you're truly an empath and you truly understand the life of an empath, you know, it's a completely different thing. I've been in places, and poor Dave, I'll make plans with him to go to a place, and we'll get there, and I'll say, "Oh, I don't feel like going. I don't want to go. It's just bad energy that I'm feeling."
It is.
And he'll be like, "We're looking forward to going here," and I'll say, "Let's just do something else. A restaurant. I'll be excited about going to a restaurant, and we'll pull up, and I'll say." I don't know if I can.
Feeling it.
I don't know if I can people that much, Dave. Let's go someplace else. It's a little less. You know, it's the life it is.
Oh, and God bless Walmart, because the only time I'm ever in Walmart is 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning at the latest, or 9, 10 o'clock at night. I can't go during the day.
No, it's very difficult. It's hard for me to be in crowds of any kind. Concert crowds, believe it or not, something I do all the time. It's very difficult for me. I've had to learn how to shut it off whenever I possibly can, or avoid it if I possibly can. So I understand how you can get your fit. Did you have to work hard to kind of take your time so that you have me time and you don't have things that come to you or feelings that you get? I'm very good at blocking. My problem sometimes is I forget to unblock. Yeah.
So I almost have to. And different things, and I haven't found out Aldi's in Ilion, the old building, couldn't walk into. I would walk in the front door and be ready to strangle anybody. It was anger and frustration, and it was terrible. So I got to the point where if I needed something at Aldi's, I would send my sister-in-law in. I'm like, here, I need this, and she would go. Since they've built the new building, I'm fine.
Do you have any idea why that is?
There's 2 possibilities that have come up. One of them is either the ground that building was built on, which I'm going more towards that, because I can't park over there either. There's parking over there, and I noticed that every time, like my husband, when he pulls in, he went to park over there, and I just got the chills, and it's like, I had to jump out of the vehicle and go inside and do my thing.
Right.
And then I said, you come pick me up. Because it was raining, so it worked out good. Because he sometimes doesn't understand this. So I'm like, I'll put the cart back, you come pick me up. So I didn't have to walk back over there. So I'm almost thinking that was an area.
The earth can collect energy.
It can.
Especially if there's water near it or running water, and the earth can collect energy and keep it there. So if you build on top of that energy, and we live in a very historical area, and there were wars and there were killings and there were all kinds of things going on here. So that makes perfect sense to me, that you would be in one area and feel that energy coming through. And it just makes sense.
Well, you know my place to be.
Oh, we're getting there. Oh, yeah. I want to talk about that, too. Because we share a love of Gettysburg.
Absolutely.
A lot of times, I know we were talking about this, that when I go down to Gettysburg, we're actually going down in June again. Every time I go down to Gettysburg, I feel, I don't tell people this a lot, but I feel like I'm home. I don't know if I lived a previous life in the area, if I was part of that area, but I just have this feeling of I'm home. And when we stay down there, poor Dave, we have to drive the entire battlefield once in the morning and once in the evening every single day we're down there, because I feel like that is some sort of almost mini closure for me each day to drive it. I've had plenty of experiences down there. Plenty of things have happened that make me think that somehow I am connected to Gettysburg.
You are.
But you want to live down there.
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely.
When was the first time?
If the windfall came in today, I'd be there by Friday. It's amazing. But as I go to Gettysburg all the time and I'm learning more and more and more about the battle, there's another interest that has really tipped, and it's the hospitals. I bought a book about this time last year, and it's called The Debris of Battle. And it's amazing what these people went through after the war.
Yeah.
They as the soldiers all marched south, all of a sudden you've got all of these bodies, and not even the ones that had passed. They're all the dead ones, or excuse me, the wounded soldiers. They'd cut the train lines. The rails were gone. They couldn't get them evac to the hospital in Philadelphia. You had and then all the doctors left because they had to go with
the troops.
With the troops. And now you've got people that never doctored before. You've got women who are taking care of these people, and they're trying to get the railroads put back together again. But you've still got all these bodies, and who's feeding these people?
Can you imagine the energy that is there? When I am there, I can't say that I'm overwhelmed. I just feel like it's where I need to be. That to me, it's not overwhelming.
Nope.
I will occasionally find myself crying. But it's just a feeling of this is where I need. Now, I was never. I'm not a war person. I grew up loving history, and I think to fully understand things like being a psychic or a medium or anything like that, you have or being involved in the paranormal like I am, you have to have a love of history, because they go hand in hand.
They absolutely.
And I always was drawn to the Civil War, especially the Battle of Gettysburg, but not the technical aspects. Like, they went on this flank, and I don't even know what that means. And so I was always the kind of person that wanted to know how they lived and what they did and how they dealt with it, and the personal, emotional feelings that went with all this, and the mother losing her son, and the 14-year-old. We were walking, we were driving on the battlefield the last time we were down there. And we were just going past Little Round Top. Devil's Den and Little Round Top were on our left. And we're coming down this little hill. And ahead, there are 3 people walking, sort of in the road, sort of on the side of the road. And as they got closer, I realized that the 2 on the outside were carrying a flag. And the one on the inside was about 14 years old, and he had a drum. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. I said, "Oh, Dave, look, reenact." Well, we slowed down, and they didn't really look at us. They just kept walking. And I said, "They must be reenactors." We drove around. There were no other reenactors. And I think to myself, now I look back and I go, why would they just be walking around in that formation for no reason with no reenactors around. I'm like, that I just saw something. You know what I mean? And it's fascinating to me how real that seems. There are reports of people seeing entire battalions marching through fields down there. It's unbelievable.
There's a lot of spots, but there's one area when you're coming around where Farnsworth had met his demise. And as you're going around through there, and then you're going around and up, I see them all. They're all behind the rocks and behind the trees, and they're reliving. They relive everything over and over again. It seems like it's on a loop. One of the things, if you do get down to Gettysburg for any length of time, take the trip to Antietam.
We were going to last time and we didn't do it, but I really want to do it this time.
You'll notice battlefield's a battlefield, but it's not. And you'll notice a completely different feel, especially with the empath part of you. You know how you feel in Gettysburg.
Yes.
And when you get to Antietam, there's a shift. There's a lot that's the same, but there's a lot that's different. It's actually much calmer, which doesn't make an awful lot of sense, depending.
I think I understand what you're saying.
And it's hard because Antietam had the bloodiest day in the war for a single day, but it's just got a different feel to it.
How does your husband deal with this? Has he known? I mean, obviously he's known the whole time. Does he believe?
I don't know. I think I embarrassed the hell out of him one day so bad he'll never go back to the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown again. And I felt terrible. But when Spirit wants me to give somebody a message, I have to give it.
Let's talk about the morning that I was on the air and you just called me. You just called me. Well, I was thinking about you, and then do you know somebody who has a black and white dog?
And I can't remember what it was now.
I felt like I needed to call you and tell you this.
I did. It was something I had to, because you're going to run into somebody at some point in time that's going to say, but when it comes, it's like I have to give it. So we're at the Farmers Museum, and we're doing. It must have been for Halloween. Something with their, I don't know, one of their evening, you walk around thing. And we went to the blacksmith shop, which I'm very attuned. Horses are my thing. That's my big thing. I do make barn calls. I don't do house calls for dogs and cats, but I make barn calls for the horses. So as we're walking in the tour guide, and I don't remember his name. It was funny because when we first started, he'd said that he'd just gotten back from Gettysburg. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this guy's, I'm just thinking that, they just came back from Gettysburg. And we had just come back from Gettysburg. So as we're going through, and he's telling about this ghost in the blacksmith shop who likes to play tricks on the security guards at night. He'll turn the light on, and the guard will get all the way around to the tavern, and he looks, and there's a light on upstairs in the blacksmith shop. So he'll go back over. The place is all locked up. He'll go upstairs, shut the light off up in the loft, and come back down. By the time he gets over on the other side again, the light's on again. So the guy likes to break the security guard's chops. So as he's going on, he's telling about, and it was the man who owned the building. It was not in Cooperstown. I think he said it was in New Berlin or someplace. They brought the building in, as they do so many of their buildings. Right. And he told of the blacksmith who had. It was at the turn where, he's shoeing horses and he's putting the rims on the carriages, on their wheels and everything. And then all of a sudden the car came along, and now he's not doing so much. And he had fallen into, he didn't have much of a job anymore because people are relying on vehicles instead of the horses and the carriages and everything. And apparently he had started drinking, and it just had snowballed and finally passed away, and on we went. So the tour guide, as we're walking out, somebody had said, well, I guess, and I don't remember who owned what his name was, didn't show up tonight. And I'm like, oh no, he's here. and he's telling me things, and I'm like, it's not going to be right now, but I'll get it to him.
Right.
So we walk around and we go into the tavern, and as we walk into the tavern there is so much going on in there. I said to my husband, I said, I have to sit down. He's like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just really lightheaded. There was so much energy going on, and there's so much spirit going on.
Right.
And the tour guide was talking about a little girl and a woman upstairs who he felt was her mother. And it's like, no, she was her governess. And they said that they've seen her out on the balcony dancing around. She loves the balcony. She just loves to be outside. She's got a beautiful light yellow dress on. And so I'm kind of relaying this to my husband, and he's just looking at me.
Like you're insane.
Yeah. Because I think this is really the first time that this has really come out.
Right.
So as we're walking out of the back of the tavern, and they've got actually the time before I had been there, they didn't have it there yet, beautiful colonial that they had just brought in, and that's there. And I said, and there's a woman sitting in the bottom left-hand window, sitting in a chair, watching. He goes, what is she watching? I go, she's waiting for her husband to come home. So as we walk in, and he's looking in the corner, and he goes, well, there's nobody there, and there isn't a chair there. And it's like, okay. So we go in the back, and they have a reading of The Raven. Mm-hmm. So as we're walking back out, I see and she sat back again, and I see her move back. She just stands in the corner and waits for me to get out. And as soon as we got outside, I looked, and she had resumed her spot in the window looking. And he said, who's she looking for? She's waiting for her husband. And he's like, but I didn't see her in there. And I just kind of, I don't make fun of him because he doesn't understand.
If you don't see it.
Right. And he doesn't ask. So I kind of sit there and I wonder, okay, is he hoping that I'll go away? I don't know. So we're walking back, and I finally got the tour guide to the point where I could talk to him. And I said, by the way, so-and-so, because I can't remember what his name is, was there. And I says, he has a message for you. Well, the guy stops dead in his tracks, and he says, what is it? And I said, he says, from one veteran to another. Now, I didn't know either one of them were vets.
Right.
I said, from one veteran to another, he appreciates the respect that you give him whenever you're talking about him in your tours. Wow, really? And I said, yes. And he said, how did he tell you this? I can't explain it. It's almost like a mental conversation that you kind of, if you have it with yourself, like you sit there and you think about it, and it's like, okay, I have to remember to do this. It's going on inside your head, but you don't, it's hard to explain.
Unless you live it. You can never explain it fully.
Exactly. So I told him, I said, and he just wants you to know that he appreciates it. And he's like, thank you so much.
Let me ask you about the lady waiting for her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Was she was aware that everyone was there?
Yes. Yeah. As soon as they started walking into the room, she got right up, moved right away. It was I almost got the feeling like she didn't want them to feel her energy.
Well, I was just going to ask you that. Is it a fact? Is it just the idea of moving her energy? She's moving her own energy away from everybody. Yeah, she just wanted to get. And I don't know if she didn't want. I'm not sure if she didn't want to be felt, or if she just was kind of moving. I'm not really sure. But she was definitely conscious of what was going on.
Yep. I have a guide, and I always listen to him. When he talks to me, he's Native American, and when he talks to me, I listen.
Do spirits know when somebody knows that they're there? Does that make sense? Like, do they see you coming? As opposed to maybe your husband, who has no abilities that he is aware of. Do they come to you and want to talk to you?
I think they do, and I think sometimes I wonder. Now I have, without names, I went down to my barn one day, and I walked in there and I smelled smoke, and that's the last thing you want to smell in a barn,
right?
Especially with horses and hay. You don't want to smell smoke, and I'm sniffing around, and it came and it left. So I know it's not real. If by the time I smell something and it hits my head to where I can decipher what it is, and if it's gone, I know it's something spirit. Come to find out, it was a woman who had died on our property. She was in an accident and had died on the property. And she's from the 1700s. Then the next time I smelled her, I realized it's cook stove. And then I could smell bread, and I'm like, oh my God, you're killing me. fresh baked bread on a hearth.
I know.
And as I started getting more and more used to her being around, she's in the house, and she has tendency to shut my coffee pot off on me.
Oh, my gosh.
And she shut the computer off on me one day, and I finally said, please do me a favor.
Don't do that.
Don't shut the computer off if you need to see something. So the coffee pot, I walked by one day, it was on, and I had gone into the half bath and washed my hands. I come back out, and it's off. I know the light was on when I walked by because I looked. And then it happened a couple more times, and I'm like, what's with the coffee pot?
Right.
She doesn't understand electronics, which makes perfect sense.
1700s.
Yeah, she doesn't have a clue what all of these little gadgets are. She knows I'm pouring coffee, but she doesn't understand how it got there. So on the weekends, I do perk coffee. So I'm getting the percolator out of the cupboard, and it goes, it's a stovetop one, and I'm putting... That's the way you make coffee. Clear as day. I got her going, that's how you make coffee. If I get the gist that something or someone is around, I just throw it out there. Mm-hmm. Who are you? What do you, do you want something? Do you want me to tell somebody something? Now, with the animals, there were 2 local horses that were murdered.
Yes.
Not recently, a couple years ago.
Yes.
I'm sitting down eating dinner one day, and there was one in Florida that had been slaughtered and for meat. And all of a sudden, he just was here. It was like right here in my face. And he goes, I don't understand what happened. Sometimes they don't, if it's something like that, they don't understand. It's very hard to explain to them. And they find me. Animals find me.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking to their souls?
Yes. And because he just was, he was, all of a sudden he said, and he felt it. And one of the local horses had come to me, said I wasn't doing anything. I was eating my grass. And then all of a sudden I felt sharp pain, and then that was it. He was gone. And that's devastating. At that point in time, I'm usually sitting there in tears.
Right.
And I would want to go strangle somebody.
And how do you talk them? Do you talk them to sort of peace? I
try to explain to them, and it's hard because I'm not actually talking. It's in my mind, and just explain to them that I know it wasn't your time, but it was something that happened, and to forgive. Animals are very giving. Mm-hmm. They're very, to explain to them to forgive to somebody, they kind of got to the point where it's like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. They just didn't understand what happened or why it happened. Right. My first trip to Gettysburg, went to the museum and the cyclorama.
Yes.
Have you been into the movie?
I have, yes.
Morgan Freeman doing which he could talk to me all day long, and I would just sit and listen. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I don't even know what part of the movie it was. I had hundreds of horses on my chest, and I couldn't breathe. It was all of a sudden like something had just crushed my chest, and I took a deep breath, and it was stuck there. And they were all there all at once. It was almost like, and it's not that there's never been an animal communicator in Gettysburg. There's
right.
There's people in and out of there all the time. They just all of a sudden must have chose me and couldn't understand what happened. They were doing their job. They were doing what they were supposed to do, and then they're dead, and they didn't understand. So I kind of did it's not your fault. It wasn't anything that you did wrong. It's just circumstances of war. And then they left. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there, I'm sobbing. Tears are just, they're rolling down my face. I got my husband on my left. I have 3 or 4 men that all came in a group to the right, and I'm thinking, all right, which is the lesser of the two evils? Because he's my husband, my poor husband. He's going, what are you crying for? So I'm kind of turning to this guy, looking and doing one of these things, and I got something in my eye, and and this happened this was the first trip we went. This was in September. In October, a friend of mine was getting married down there, and my husband couldn't go. He had to work that weekend, so I grabbed my sister-in-law and shot down there. And so we went to the wedding, and Sunday morning, we're getting ready to leave, and I was at one of the tour barns. I was doing some Reiki and working with a couple of their rescue horses. And my sister-in-law comes out and she says, "You got to come talk to this horse." Okay. So I go up to him. He's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. He's an Appaloosa. And I put my hands on him. And the first thing he had said was, "Tell her I am so grateful she let me finish my job." He was one of the horses that died on the battlefield.
Oh, my God.
And my friend Dawn, at the time, was riding. She was doing wrangling for this tour, so he was out on the battlefield every Sunday. He was out there with her, taking guides or the tours out there, working with them, and that was the first thing out of his mouth was, "Thank you for letting me finish my job."
You're making me cry right now.
And he was amazing, and he was just so appreciative because he got to finish his each one. When the hooves are on the ground, they have a job to do. They're born into a job. Most of the horses on the battlefield never got to finish their jobs. They didn't feel like they got to finish their jobs. They were taking off of their farms and away from their people and put into service that nobody asked for. And he was just so appreciative. And it was funny because she had said, "Are you going to be here when we get back?" And I said, I don't think so. We got to head north. And we were there. They were just coming in off the tour. And my sister-in-law comes up and she says, "They're coming back." So I'd gotten out of the car just to say goodbye to her. And all of a sudden, this was just, it's never happened before and it has never happened again. He stopped and put his leg out and bowed. He put it out and he went down and bowed, and then I went up and gave him a hug. And horses, when they hug, you put your arms around their neck and they will pull you into their chest.
Right.
And he hugged me, and then he went out. And Dawn said, "He's never done that before."
Oh my God, I'm
he
crying.
may never do it again. But it was amazing. That was all the I had just kind of started, and it was one of those things where, you're never, when you first start doing and you actually are paying attention to it, you're never really sure if you're saying the right things, if you're really getting this. Is it your imagination?
Yes.
There's a lot of people that, and that was my confirmation. He was amazing in the barn working with him before he went out on the tour, but the bow was over the top. And so
gosh.
Every time I go down there, I go and I visit with him, and he's a sweetheart. He's always, it is. And that's, I'm just so pulled. And a lot of times I go out on the battlefield and I'll see, there was this past, I go down every June, and this past June I had gone down and I was driving by another friend of mine. She said, "We got to stop and look at the bridge." And I thought, "What's with the bridge?" And she says, "There's fossils in the stones where they made the top of the bridge." And I thought, "Oh, that's really interesting," because me and I got to touch.
Right.
Stones,
right.
I want to touch. So we got out. We looked. Sure enough, we found the fossils. They're very, and I can't remember now what they were. Birds, I think they were, and you could see the bones, and they were really cool. They're not really deep, and you really have to look for them, but you can find them, and they're just really cool stones. Well, all of a sudden, while we're standing there, I saw this way. Native American Indian young boy who had come down off the hill and his horse stumbled and fell and died, and he's sitting there with cradling the horse's head, sobbing. And this was back before the Civil War, because there's layers. There's layers upon layers upon layers wherever you are, and this was pre-Civil War, and he was just, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. And it was almost, and I got the feeling he just wanted somebody to acknowledge that he was there.
That he was there and this happened to him.
And then he was gone. And it was, you sit there and you look again, and it's like, I know what I saw, because it's not this.
Right.
And this just happened this past June, so it's like, it was just kind of nice to be able to, and I don't know if a lot of people say, "Oh, you got to help them cross over." I don't know if I was crossing over or I was just acknowledging the fact that somebody knew his story.
Right.
And whether I could repeat it to anybody who knew or who remembered or who whatever it was.
Sure.
But it was just acknowledging the fact that it happened and he was gone.
Wow.
And it was amazing.
You have your own Facebook page.
I do.
And it's Whispering
Hands Animal Communication.
But you do just about everything.
I do a little bit of everything.
You kind of dabble.
Yeah.
The experiences that you've had, and it is so much to deal with in your life, and the fact that you're so sweet and kind,
thank you.
and upbeat and happy all the time.
I love it. I love it. I wish, and I thank Spirit and God for my gift every single day. I wish I hadn't wasted as much time as I did, and I don't mean to say that it was wasted time. I wish that I had acted on it, because it's always been there. There's always been things here and there, and everybody's got a little bit. You know, that gut feeling where all of a sudden, and then you say to yourself, "Oh, I should have not have done that," and you knew you shouldn't have done it, but you did it anyways.
Right.
And there were so many times that I wished I had listened, and I wished I had let myself open up more earlier. But I'm making up for lost time.
If somebody wants a reading, what can they do? Just go to the Facebook page?
Go to the Facebook page. They can message me. They can email me, do the message, and I'll tell you what to do and how to do it.
And it's very simple and very easy.
And generally, it's about 24 to 48 hours before I get back with a reading. Generally, what you would get with that is any questions that you ask generally get answered. With a lot more, and then what happens is once I send that back to you, if an answer has opened more questions, we can go back and forth. It's not like this is it and this is all you get. I'm I'm here for the animals.
I just highly recommend it. The communication that you have done for me, for my mother, which is amazing. It's put her mind at ease, and the closure that people can get is just. It's really, really needed when it comes to your animals, who in so many ways are like your own children.
It is. Thank you so much.
Medium, Reiki master, and animal communicator extraordinaire. I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Real People, Real Stories with Brittany Lee.
Well, I've done a lot of things, some of which I ain't too proud of, but it's my life and who I chose to be. So I've done a lot of drinking, and I've smoked my share of green, but when I flipped my truck, I was sober as could be. Yeah, this is my story, the truth behind me.